Alright, so going to go over part of 3.2 to hopefully help you with your assignment that was given today. Couple things we talked about. One of the major things was clearing the fraction from an equation. Remember, go back to these notes on 3.1, how to solve multi-step equations. We talked about it before. We started early on with just step 2 and 3 and single step problems. Then we started getting into how do we distribute and combine like terms if we need to, and then this would usually be typically be your second to last step, and then your last step would be the multiply or divide to get the positive variable by itself. And then we got into today clearing fractions, and we talked about multiplying all the denominators together to get your common denominator. That's the easiest way, so where you don't have to think about, oh, does this number go into that number? No, you can just multiply each one together, do the math, use your calculator, and you'll get the correct answer. So I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple of the problems that we had for homework, and hopefully this guides you with the rest of the assignment or any other practice problems you may have. So this goes along with 3.2. If I bring up the first problem, one of the problems we had was number 16. M plus 5 times the quantity of m minus 1 equals 7. So this is one of the ones where we distribute first. So I do 5 times m, which is 5m, 5 times negative 1, which is negative 5. Then we bring down this m plus, or the m, and then we put the plus there because it's a positive 5, equals 7. And we talked about combining like terms at this point. I have an m and a positive 5m. That's going to give me a 6m. Bring down the rest, minus 5 equals 7. Isolate, we have to isolate this variable term, which means we have to get rid of this negative 5. So we do that by doing the opposite. The inverse operation would be adding 5. So we have 6m equals 7 plus 5, 12. And then the last part we do would be to get the positive 1m by itself. To make 6 a 1, we have to divide by 6 for both sides, and we get m equals 2. So that's how we get to that answer. Hopefully this one helps. Use this as a guide when there's distributive property within the beginning of the problem. We only have a variable on one side of the fraction. Alright, moving on to the ones that you may have more trouble with. The problems with fractions and how to clear the fraction. I'm going to bring up my calculator and put it over here. I'm going to do it this way. We talked about in class, if the biggest number of all three fractions, if each of these smaller numbers can go into it, a 3 can go into 12, a 4 can go into 12, and a 12 can go into 12, we can multiply everything by 12. But since sometimes we get confused on what numbers can go into what, we talked about just multiply all the denominators together to get your common denominator. So we're going to do that. I'm going to take 3 times 4 times 12, and again, we're using our calculator, so we can use a little bit bigger numbers and be okay with it. So 3 times 4 times 12 gives me 144. So I'm going to multiply all three of these terms by 144. Alright, what that's going to do is clear the fraction. It's going to give me whole numbers. We've worked with fractions on your calculators, how to type in fractions. If you have a basic calculator like this, remember you just do the number you're multiplying by, the numerator, and then divide by the denominator. So it looks like this. If I'm going to do 144 times 2/3, it's 144 times 2. That answer divided by 3, that gives me 96. So I'm writing a 96 here. So that's the first number we multiplied. Then we have to do 144 times 3k over 4. So again, we're going to do it the same concept. We're going to do 144 times 3 divided by 4. That's going to give me 108. So I'm going to do plus 108. And I'm going to keep that variable there. So we got to keep the k there. Alright. Remember, always remember to do all the terms. So now I have to do it with 71 over 12. So I'm going to say 144 times 71. That equals 10,224, but we divide that by, whoops, made a mistake there. So 144 times 71 divided by 12. That gives me oops, you can see my mistake there. I was wondering why it didn't come out as a whole number. I put 1444. So let me clear that again. Sorry about that. 144 times 71 divided by 12. There we go. That's better. I don't feel like re-recording this, so you just get to see my mistakes. But it's a good thing because you can see how you can catch your mistakes, because we talked about in class 2 how they should come out as a whole number. So I'm going to put 852 here. And now we can just go ahead and do our algebra. We want to get this variable term by itself, so we have to get rid of the 96. So we'll do that by subtracting 96 from both sides. I already have 852 in here, so I'm just going to put minus 96. Gives me 756 equals 108k. Now I have to get the k by itself, so of course we're going to divide that by 108. So divided by 108, it gives me 7. So my answer is k equals 7. Alright, I'm going to do one more problem for you guys to kind of go along with. Maybe you want to pause the video here, try it yourself, and see how you do. I'm going to go ahead and start with this. Again, we have 2 denominators in this problem. The previous one we had 3, we only have 2, so we have a 2 and a 5. 2 times 5 is 10, so I'm multiplying everything by 10. That's going to clear the fraction for me. Remember, there's a 1 here with that a, so the thought process is 10 times 1 divided by 2. So 10 times 1 divided by 2 we know is 5, but again, you could type it into your calculator. 10 divided by 5. Oops, 10 divided by 2 gives me my 5. So this would be 5a. 10 times 1/5. So again, 10 times 1 divided by 5. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 divided by 5 we know is 2, but 10 divided by 5 is our 2, so plus 2. Then 10 times 17, we have that too. 10 times 17 is 170, but 10 times 17. It's good to be sure, just to make sure our math is correct. Alright, so again, now on here we want to get 5a by itself, so we want to get rid of this positive 2. We do that by subtracting 2. We always do the opposite. So we have 5a equals, again, 170, subtract 2. If you have a hard time doing it in your head, your calculator should already be loaded. Just put minus 2. You got 168. It's a good tool just to have out on your desk as you're working on these. Then we need to divide by 5 to get a by itself, so divide by 5. So then we have a equals, and again, since it's already here, divided by 5, 33.6. Alright, so hopefully you got that answer. They're not always going to come out as nice, neat numbers. That's why we want to make sure we show our work, that we can go through the process. When you check your answers, you can see whether you got it right or whether you got it wrong. And then, especially if you bring it to me the next day, I can tell you if you got it right or wrong, and more specifically, where you may have made your mistake. Your mistake may have been to add instead of subtract there. So it might be a little simple mistake, an easy correction, and we can get you back on the right track.